everybody. How are you? Wow, what a big crowd. I'm honored. I'm honored that you guys, it's Monday morning and you're here this early in the morning to hear me speak. I'm pretty excited about this. Scott and Rich asked me to come here today, and I was here last year. I spoke in the afternoon, and they asked me to come here today in the morning and talk to you about branding, personal branding. So what is it that's going to make you different than the rest? Malcolm Gladwell, in his book, The Tipping Point, talks about graffiti, and he says, if a piece of graffiti shows up on a building and it's not removed, within 7 days, more graffiti will show up. So you think about your own personal brand. And once you think about that personal brand, if you go off-brand, it's graffiti. So you have to be true to your brand, and then your brand will become stronger and stronger. When you're building your personal brand, you cannot pay attention to shiny objects. Shiny objects are everywhere. Every single day there's a shiny object that hits you. In fact, there's probably a shiny object that's been buzzing in your pocket for the last 45 minutes. That's a distraction. There's distractions everywhere. And those I've discovered that make it ignore shiny objects completely and totally. They have in their mind they're not all things to all people. In fact, if you look at the world's best athletes, they might be the world's best hockey player, but I guarantee you they don't know how to play tennis. They focus on hockey, not tennis, not football, not basketball. They focus on hockey. When you go home tonight and figure out what your purpose is and what your vision and what your strategies are, also determine what is it that you're better at than anybody else, and then focus on that. Because it's that strength that's got you to where you are here today, not your weaknesses. So let me start with the story. In July of 2004, I quit TELUS. And a week later, the phone rings, and it's a friend of mine who used to work at TELUS. He's now in Romania, of all places, and he's doing a wireless startup for a small Canadian company. And he says, we have a sales problem. Would you like to come out here and give us some advice? I got on a plane in July, and I flew out to Romania. I stayed there for a week. I kicked the tires on their sales organization, and at the end of it, I gave him a report. There you go. He flipped through it. He said, oh, it's all very nice. How would you like to stay and do it? What? So we started talking about terms, and I thought, wow, this is just too good of a deal to pass up. I got on the plane and I flew home. I didn't tell my wife about it until I got home. And it was just an amazing opportunity. But Romania, and at the time, has anybody ever been to Romania? Hands up? Okay, a couple of you, yeah. At the time in 2004, it was kind of a second world country. They were just kind of finding their own way. The infrastructure wasn't great. I'd actually taken some pictures and I'd showed my wife, and my wife Colleen said, wow, this is really cool. And this is the same woman that 3 months ago wouldn't take a transfer to Calgary. So I said, they've offered me a job. And before I even told her about the job, she said, cool, let's do it. Are you into the wine again? Did you look at the pictures? And she says, no, this is the chance of a lifetime. We got to do this. So 3 weeks later, we've packed up the whole house, a 10-year-old son who is super excited, and a 14-year-old daughter who hates my guts. And we're sitting at the airport, and we're waiting to go on our flight. Now, we're going to be catching a Lufthansa flight from Vancouver to Frankfurt overnight, and then on to Bucharest. And the company that I'm going to be working for is super good to us. We all get to fly business class. I want you to pay attention to this part of the story because we all have customers. Even if you work in a corporation, you have a customer. If you're your own practice, you've got customers that you rely upon. They pay your salary. In fact, all our customers pay our salary. This story is quite amazing. I walk up to the business class check-in at Frankfurt Airport, and I hand the passports, and the girl says, oh, Mr. Murray, we've been expecting you. I go, cool. And then she says, you've been downgraded. What? And she says, oh, we changed planes, and we don't have enough room for your family in business class, but don't worry, we have seats for you in economy. It's only a 2-hour flight. I'm not too stressed about it, but I said to her, I have full fare business class tickets. What are you going to do to refund them? And she says, well, that's not my problem. I said, okay, well, I'd like to cash these tickets in, and then I'll buy 4 economy class tickets. And she says, oh, you can't do that. The plane's full. And I got lost in the logic, and I decided to try and reason with her. And she says, it's not my fault. And I said, well, who can I talk to? And she says, well, you need to find a manager. And I said, can you get a manager for me? She says, well, he's down at the gate. All right. So we go over to economy class. We wait in this long lineup, and now I'm starting to get like a little bit boiled. And we get to the gate, and I ask for the manager. The guy comes, he introduces himself as the manager. He says, how can I help you? And I said, well, I paid for these business class tickets, or my company did, and now I've got economy class. He says, yeah, the plane's full. And I said, yes, but I'd like a refund. And he says, it's impossible. And I said, why? And he said, because the plane's full. And I just like, oh, I'm starting to get a migraine. And this discussion, I'm being really cool too, by the way, because I know if you make a scene at the airport, you get thrown in jail. So I'm trying to reason with this guy. And finally, after about 10 minutes, he says, listen, your plane is about to leave. Do you want to get on it or not? I have to be at work the next morning, so I said, fine. Let's go. So we get on the bus and we bus out. We're just the four of us on the bus. We go out to the plane. It stops by the stairs. We climb up the stairs and we get into there. I walk into the cabin, the business class cabin, and there's 6 empty seats. I'm still namaste, okay? I haven't lost it. I go through the cabin and I get down into my seat, and we're spread all over the cabin in the economy class, and I sit down, I put my seatbelt on, and I feel this tap on my shoulder. And I look up, and it's the captain. And I go, yes, finally, somebody's come to their senses. And he says to me, Mr. Murray, we're not going to have any problems with you, are we? I go, what? And he says, then he gets really close. He's this far from my nose. He says, we're not going to have any problems with you, are we? And I said, no, I have nothing to say. So Lufthansa's communications was working. They worked from the check-in all the way to the captain. They knew that I wasn't happy. They knew that there was a bit of a mix-up and a screw-up, but somehow it's my fault, not theirs. So their processes for communicating are working. Unfortunately, their processes are designed for the convenience and comfort of Lufthansa and not their passengers. For 3 months, I emailed every single night my story. 3 months, no reply. Finally, a check arrives in the mail for the difference between business class and economy class. No other thing other than a check. They didn't send this little handwritten note that says, please come fly the friendly skies of Lufthansa once again. Pissing off your customers has a tangible cost. It does. Since that time, August 2004, I have flown 82 transatlantic flights. My wife has been with me on a number of those flights. My children have been with me on 16 of them. I add them all up, and it's about 160 flights. At an average cost of $2,000 a piece. That's $320,000, not one on Lufthansa. Pissing off your customers has a tangible cost. Not to mention the fact that I'm a speaker, I speak all over the world, and I tell this story all over the world. And it's in my book. Not once has Lufthansa reached out to me and said, how can we make amends for this? They have gone about their business as if they were in the right mind. Pissing off your customers has a tangible cost. And if you want to be separated from the crowd and to build your brand, your customer is everything. And if you're running a company or if you're running a team of people, your systems and processes have to be designed for the customer and not for the convenience of you and your company. Absolutely, it's all about the customer. Today is the age of the customer. And that's what will set you apart from everyone else. So, I want to thank you guys very, very much for your time. You have honored me. Thank you.